At least 6 people have been killed in a shooting in Jerusalem and several others injured, including a pregnant woman. 2 gunmen opened fire at a bus stop before they were killed by a soldier and other civilians. Well, the attack comes just after President Trump gave Hamas what he called a last warning to agree a deal. He said Israel had accepted his terms, though he didn't give details. Well, let's talk to Richard Pater, who is director of the Britain-Israel Communications and Research Centre and previously served in the Israeli Prime Minister's office as a press officer. Good evening to you, Richard.
Good evening. Thank you for having me on.
Good to have you with us. Just first of all, that attack in the centre of Jerusalem, I mean, I've seen some footage of what happened, and it was clearly a particularly shocking attack, sending people just going about their lives, fleeing from the hail of bullets.
Yeah, absolutely. Although you can see I'm in London right now, I'm actually a resident of Jerusalem, and I was actually passing that junction just last week, taking my wife to an appointment. So I know that area pretty well. It's a very busy, popular interchange, a junction, and this is kind of pure terrorism, targeting innocent people on their way to work, kids on their way to school, etc., and indiscriminately opening fire and shooting at civilians. So it's quite a shocking attack.
And it seems to have prompted a further security crackdown by Israeli forces, in particular on the West Bank.
Well, so my understanding is that it's a localized operation. It's not yet clear, but there are indications that the 2 gunmen perhaps had a third assailant. And so the focus of the initial manhunt was focused on the area potentially of the third assailant fleeing back to the West Bank. And in any case, the villages where the 2 gunmen that were killed came from, the focus is on targeted operations in those areas to understand if they came from a cell, if there was an infrastructure of terrorism, and obviously to prevent any future attacks.
And of course, this comes after, I mean, the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, his entire pitch to his country has been about trying to keep the country safe, especially, of course, after those October the 7th attacks just over 2 years ago. This, though, clearly has been seized on by right-wingers in his cabinet.
Well, the truth is, this is the first attack in Jerusalem, in centre of Jerusalem, for 2 years. And to an extent, in the lead up to October the 7th, the summer of 2023, the main focus of the security agenda was concern of a spilling over of violence from the West Bank. So to an extent, that hasn't happened. And that's happened because the IDF have been operating over the last few months in places like Nablus and Jenin. There are other places. One of the untold stories is the ongoing cooperation between the Israeli security forces and Palestinian Authority security forces that still have a shared agenda to try and combat Hamas and other extremist jihadi groups. So there is definitely an effort, and I think there is a broad consensus within Israeli politics, not just the government, but in the opposition as well, that terrorism is unacceptable and that the military needs to take a decisive and tough response to prevent any attacks on civilians.
Now, I'm just looking at some reports from Hamas saying that it's received some ideas from the United States through mediators on how to reach a Gaza ceasefire agreement. Do you think this attack is going to have any effect on those already very difficult efforts to at least try and get proper talks on a ceasefire underway?
So, I mean, listen, Israel is dealing with quite a tenacious and frustrating enemy in Hamas. At the same time, they send some very kind of optimistic messages about their openness towards an agreement. They also kind of endorse the terror attack and continue to endorse terror attacks across the country. So, I mean, we don't know the details of this latest Trump plan. The suggestion that it's an all for all, but again, the devil will be in the details of exactly how many Palestinian prisoners. Now, I remind you that there are some heavyweight terrorists with blood on their hands serving life sentences for previous murders that obviously Israel is reluctant to release. There are also the terms of the IDF redeployment, and of course the biggest question about governance the day after, that Israel refuses to countenance the idea that Hamas can stay in control, whilst Hamas are obviously building on a scenario in which they're able to perpetuate their rule. So although Trump in his best efforts are working towards an agreement, I think we're still quite a way off.
Yeah, I'm seeing a report which suggests that a Palestinian official has said that this idea that's been floated would mean the release of all 48 remaining hostages in Gaza in return for a clear declaration of ending the war. That is something that the Israelis have been reluctant to give in the past. And just indications that Israel is prepared to look at this. But at the same time, warnings going out from Benjamin Netanyahu to Palestinians in Gaza City to evacuate, with the Israeli military stepping up an offensive to try to take control of further parts of the city.
So right, so this is kind of the duality of the current Israeli approach. They are preparing, and they've even begun to implement over the weekend, the latest operation inside Gaza City, and they're hoping at the same time that the threat of this operation will act as a stick, if you like, towards Hamas, for them to moderate their position and to agree to a release of the hostages. Let's be clear: if the hostages were released, then the vast majority of the Israeli public, and I think it would be whatever the hard right within the government and their agenda is, if all the hostages were released, the war would quite quickly come to an end. But again, the other criteria is about who remains in control. And there are no international partners, with all the goodwill, well, be it from the UK or Europe or Israel's Arab allies. No one is willing to invest in Gaza if Hamas are still there to be able to perpetuate an attack in the next weeks, months, or years. So there needs to be an understanding that the political end game is a rule without Hamas. And this operation, that if the Hamas don't come to the table, then this operation towards Gaza City and its conquest is real. It's not a bluff. And it's starting to be implemented.
Just let me ask you about one story in the Times tonight. Israel is not committing genocide in Gaza, the government concludes. This is a story from Matt Dathan, our Home Affairs editor, and he says this is a letter from David Lammy just before he was moved from his position as Foreign Secretary. And he sent a letter to the chair of the International Development Committee saying that at the moment the government considers that Israel's actions do not constitute genocide, which is, of course, the accusation that has been made of the Israeli government, certainly by some other countries.
I think this is quite a welcome statement. I mean, obviously, Israelis, and I think there is a broad consensus within the government and opposition and across Israeli civil society that this is a very nasty and difficult war against a very nasty and tenacious enemy, but this does not reach the threshold of genocide. And I think that this is a very welcome position by the British government and by the Foreign Secretary to take this much clearer and better principled position, and hopefully more of the international community will adopt that as well.
Richard Pater, Director of the Britain-Israel Communications and Research Centre. It's been great to talk to you tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you.